Blog Talk Radio. Blog Talk Radio.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Welcome to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship. Listen to interviews with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys. And now, welcome your host, Marty McDermott, and Franchise Interviews.
Hi everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 8 years, we've been asking the Franchipreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and we have a great show. We're meeting with Roberto Ortega, the CEO and co-founder of KLA Schools. And KLA Schools is an upscale preschool catering to children 3 months of age up to 6. KLA Schools offers innovative early childcare facilities along with a unique approach to early childhood education. We're going to talk to Roberto about that in just a moment on Franchise Interviews. So stick around because we got a great show.
Are you one of those special people who are willing to go after your dreams and goals? Are you ready to fulfill that dream of owning your own business with the security of a proven brand? The opportunity to take control of your future and own a Rita's Italian Ice franchise is within your reach.
Rita's is seeking success-oriented individuals who are ready to make a change in their life, and Rita's offers unparalleled training and support to assure your success. And did you know the frozen treat industry is a recession-proof industry, and there are Rita's in 23 states currently with 540 stores open. Rita's Italian Ice has been around for 25 years and is listed as a top-performing franchise by the Wall Street Journal.
Now here's the really good part. Rita's Italian Ice is a unique and amazing taste treat. It's smoother than a snow cone, and it combines ice with real fresh fruit. The real fruit adds dramatically to the taste, and it comes in over 40 flavors. The ice and fruit are mixed on site and made fresh daily, and it is delicious.
You'll want to know more about this exciting and successful franchise opportunity. Go to www.ownaritas.com and get all your questions answered. That's www.ownaritas.com to take control of your dreams and future today. You don't want to wait any longer to be a part of this adventure. www.ownaritas.com.
Are you looking for a franchise that delivers? Businesses will always need shipping, and for more than 25 years, loyal customers have depended on Unishippers for reliable savings and exceptional customer service. Unishippers is focused on just one thing, helping small and medium-sized businesses save time and money on all their shipping needs. And as the largest reseller of complete shipping services in the country, we have the buying power to ensure that we succeed. The Unishippers franchise offers low startup costs, no equipment or real estate required because they're not retail, residual income, and a quality of life and work-life balance. For more information on becoming a Unishippers franchisee, go to www.unishippers.com and click Franchise Opportunities or call Franchise Development at 801-708-5822. That's 801-708-5822. Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to a very special edition of Franchise Interviews, where for over 8 years, we've been asking the Franchipreneurs one-on-one. I'm your host, Marty McDermott. I'm the president of Franchise Interviews, and as we were saying earlier, we have a great show. We're meeting with Roberto Ortega, the CEO and co-founder of KLA Schools. And KLA Schools is an upscale preschool catering to children 3 months of age up to age 6. Hey Roberto, how you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, how are you? Good morning.
Thank you
Great,
very much for the
introduction.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Roberto. We always like to ask our guests where you're calling from this morning.
I'm calling from Miami, Florida.
Ah, beautiful. Is it safe to ask if it's hot down there today?
Oh yeah, it's pretty warm. Nice and sunny day here in the beautiful beaches of South Florida.
Yeah, Miami is definitely one of my favorite places, so I'm very envious. So I thought maybe we could dive right into it, Roberto. Maybe you could talk a little bit about KLA Schools and what drove you and Candy to form the company.
Right. So, well, basically, this story and journey began almost about 8 years now.
Wow.
Actually, a little bit more than that. When my wife, who has been a passionate and about just being around children, started her career while she was in high school. She started doing playgroups and being a nanny for different people, and she decided there's really something about the kids that I like, and she started surrounding herself with kids on her leisure time. Then after she graduated from high school, she went into school. She pursued a bachelor's degree in business administration, but while she was pursuing that degree, she was still having her after school type of programs for little kids between 0 to 6. So when she was close to graduate, she really asked herself, do I really want to get into business per se, or should I really pursue something that inspires me, which is really being around kids and do something with them? And that's when I said and we were about to get married by then. So that's when I said, but you love kids, you study business. Well, being around kids and doing something that you like, you're gonna have to form a business anyways. So it's good that you have your background in business administration. It's good that I have a background in business administration. So why don't we do this together? You handle the educational component, I handle the business component. Let's come up with a business plan to do a school for you. And then when we did the business plan, we realized, well, one school is not going to be too much of an interest for our family and friends that we're gonna ask for support to develop this together with us. And that's when we decided, well, we're gonna develop a chain of schools. And when we started with the chain concept, we then said, well, I think that the crucial model is really going through the franchise.
Right.
And basically that's how we started with the first school that opened in September 2008, and here we are.
Wow. I love this story, Roberto, and it's one of the reasons we started the show Franchise Interviews was because we've always felt that every business or every franchise has a story, and when I read yours, I said wow, this is great. This is something that we have to have on the show. And I thought that was interesting how you were telling the story of your wife, it's how she started off in business, but her passion was really more, it seemed like it was in like education and working, with the younger children, so it's nice, as you said, that she was able to utilize, both skills, and of course you two working together. I'm sure there's certainly a synergy there, so I think I think it's a wonderful story. Maybe we talk a little bit, about, what services, does the franchise offer, Roberto?
So, the franchise that we have is obviously we give the entrepreneurs who wanna buy a franchise from us. Basically, what we give them is our know-how to be able to realize their dream of owning a preschool. Obviously, there are some options out there available for them, but one of the things that me and my wife, when we were putting this together, we realized is that we were getting into a pretty competitive industry, because there were, basically everywhere you go, there's a daycare. So the need is very well covered, but I'm not necessarily sure that the need is well covered with quality programs.
Right.
And we saw a shift in kind of like where the industry was heading several when we realized that basically the programs that were available were focusing on quality care as opposed to quality education. So that's when we said, okay, well, we're going to come up with a component that has the educational component, not only the care. So what we offer is quality of care and quality of education, both together for the same price.
Right.
So really, and it's funny because after we started with this, with our concept, which was focusing on care and education, a lot of people followed the same route because the millennials, that is really
Right.
the vast majority of our clients at this point. People in the high 20s, mid 30s, they want a non-traditional way of education also. I mean, they want the kids to be educated, but they want a non-traditional way, which is more of a constructivist, child-based curriculum, as opposed to something that is teacher-initiated and teacher-led all the time.
Right.
So I think that together with the look and feel of our schools, it's a modern look, no carpeting, very clean, minimalistic, modern, trendy. I think that together with the actual approach, I think is really what sets us apart.
It was interesting too because I do recall what stood out for me was you've had a number of accolades since you've launched the concept. I mean, Newsweek actually went as far as calling you one of the best preschools in the world. That's a pretty big accolade, isn't it?
Right. Well, when Newsweek magazine decided to perform a study on the preschool systems throughout the world. One of the things that really inspired them a lot was the Reggio Emilia Approach to early childhood education, which is our approach. It's obviously a approach that is not necessarily that old. It was really developed in the 1950s, 1960s, so it's a lot newer than the traditional Montessori. That has a little bit more time out there, but this is a lot newer. And the good thing about the Reggio approach is, and one of the things that triggered, Newsweek magazine to label the approach as the best in the world, has really it's really the fact that they put the children's interest at the core of everything that has to do with the curriculum. So when you want to do something for the school, whether it's for inside the class or for the hallways or for everything that you do for the school, whether it had to do with education or if it has to do with administration of admissions, the core value is you put the children's interest in the middle. So always think for the children first and then for everything else. And it's a value that, we apply it in the school, obviously. We apply it inside the classroom, but it's also a value for life, putting the children's interest first. And, we're just thrilled about it, and we continue to be, as we keep it at the heart of what we offer,
And it's what stood out for me too, Roberto, is, we always look for, say, okay, what makes you stand out or what makes you, different from, other, I guess we can call childhood education franchises. It seems like the emphasis on quality, of course, is there. But is that the main, I guess you could say, niche or unique selling point when we're talking about KLA schools is the Reggio Emilia type of approach?
So the Reggio Emilia is definitely a big one for sure.
Right.
But like I said, is the Reggio Emilia approach is the design and look and feel of the facilities. I think that we are substantially different than the typical childcare out there. I think that there are a lot of similarities among a lot of childcare centers out there, but I think if you look at ours, we're substantially different. And in my opinion, we're substantially different for good. So I think it's a combination of both, the educational approach as well as the look and feel and the design of the school, what really sets us apart. And I think that people value both. I mean, the first love of the parents, they do research, and they do research on the educational approach, and they obviously like it, and it's a big part of them deciding to come and tour the school. But the first love with the parents comes through the eyes, and that's when the look and feel and the design of the school plays a big part of it. And then after that is when they say, okay, well, now show me that you can deliver on your promise. which is
Right.
the educational part, which is not something that happens in a day. It's something that happens throughout a school semester or throughout a school year even. So I think those two things are really what sets us apart for the parents. Now, what sets us apart, in my opinion, for potential franchisees, it's a whole different story, and that has to do with really what we go about as an organization when at the franchise level, and that is, very close communication, direct access to the founders. Me and my wife, every franchisee has direct connection with us, um, um, and I think that that's really, they value it a lot. The fact that that the franchisee can reach who developed the concept gives them a lot of security as they go through their journey of growing a school. And then lastly, the other thing that they like is that we're not the typical franchisor that basically our business is awarding franchises. Yes, we award franchises, but we're school operators. We have our own schools that are part of the system. So we can put ourselves in the franchisee's shoes as well, not necessarily only being a franchisor, franchisee type of relationship, but we're also franchisees ourselves because we operate our own schools. So they like that we can put ourselves in their shoes, knowing with first-hand experience what the parents and the consumers want.
And I think that's so important, Roberto. Is to also, as you were mentioning earlier, is for your franchisees to be able to have the access or even the ability to be able to talk to you or your wife Candy. I think that's very important. I think sometimes, some franchises, we always joke around like about, Subway. Like there's this joke about, Subway has like 40,000 units, and a lot of times, the franchisees are referred to as like franchisee number 12,400.
Right.
It's crazy.
There are a number in the system.
Exactly, there are a number in the system, and that's not happening here. I think it does give comfort. I know me as if I was a franchisee, it would give me comfort that I would have to be able to talk to you or your wife if I had a question. And also because you were mentioning the empathy factor, is that because you're actually doing it, you have the school, so you can, empathize with the franchisees, which I think is really so important. In any business, in the option of growing the business, I mean, you could always have the corporate-owned stores, and you guys decided to, franchise the concept. When did you begin franchising the concept, and why did you choose franchising as a means of expanding the business, Roberto?
Right. Well, really, let me just so I don't become redundant. Can you repeat the question just to make sure I understand?
Sure, absolutely. As far as like franchising the concept, I mean, did you know early on? I mean, you had the choice of, I guess you could say, the school's doing great. We could just open up another one on our own, But at some point, you and your wife, in the business, decided to say, okay, we're going to franchise the concept. I guess at what point did you decide to franchise it, and why, why franchising as opposed to just saying, we're just going to do it ourselves and not deal with franchisees?
Right. Well, it kind of like happened. Well, that question has several answers that I'm trying to condense into one. Well, basically, at the beginning, we knew that we wanted to develop multiple units, okay, for ourselves.
Okay. Right.
And we were considering at the beginning, okay, well, eventually we can turn this into a franchise where if people like the concept, we can then make it into a franchise so that they can help us grow the brand, and they can help themselves realizing their dream of owning a preschool. But at the beginning, we didn't have anything other than a good idea. So we needed to create proof of concept first. And when we opened the first school, we were very successful, but we felt like, okay, we want to have at least 3 schools open and operating before we actually decide, okay, this is definitely doable as a franchise model.
Right.
So we went on developing our first school in September 2008, and then the second in September 2009. And then as we were developing the third is when we decided, okay, I think that we've enough track record with 2 successfully developed, open and operating units to be able to franchise the model. So we started developing the franchise program in 2010, and then since then we started awarding franchises in a very, very conservative and controlled way, though. we are very, very selective in the process of awarding a franchise because we're a young organization, so we want to make sure that we grow with solid and strong bases, so that in the future, those first few franchises that we've sold become our most important assets, which is really showing that not only there's a proof of concept, but there are also very good unit economics that can help us grow the brand. We're a young organization as well, so we really don't have a rush to do this in a fast track type of mode. We want to do it in a controlled and secure way, and in my opinion, we've been able to achieve that. There's obviously have been challenges along the way, but what doesn't have a challenge in life?
Oh,
So,
absolutely, absolutely. In talking about the franchisees, what do you and your wife look for? I guess in selecting, it sounds like you're very selective in taking on a new franchisee, Roberto. I mean, so who are your ideal franchisees? I mean, are they multi-unit franchise partners? And maybe we could even talk about some of your, like, I guess we can call all-star franchisees.
well, I mean, I gotta say that there's not a secret formula.
Okay.
It involves, I would say that it involves objective, but as well as a good deal of subjective uh, evaluation and
Okay.
and to decide, what may or may not work. I have to say that the first thing that we want to see is making sure that there's there's a passion or a strong desire to work with children.
Right. Right.
That's one of the most important things because one would say, well, to develop one of these schools, you really need to have a lot of capital, and he's right. I mean,
Sure.
they're right. This is not an industry that you can buy a franchise for the amount that you buy a Subway sub or any other fast food chain. Obviously, not getting into the McDonald's and Denny's and those big ones, but
Right.
the smaller chains, you can get in for a lot less than what it would require to develop a preschool. A preschool is more like a big type of chain restaurant, right? That kind of
Sure.
investment. So that narrows down the amount of prospects that you're gonna get. Now, but
Right.
because within the pool of people that can afford to do a preschool, you have a lot of people and high net worth individuals, right, that are
Sure.
not necessarily looking into buying a franchise for anything other than just getting into a good business, right?
I
So
see.
we,
Right.
in this case, right, yes, this is a good business because obviously I wouldn't be in it if it wouldn't be a good
Right.
business. It needs to be a
True.
good business as well, but that's not the main reason why you should get into early childhood education. I mean, obviously if you do it right, you're gonna make good money and you're gonna be happy
Right.
with the performance of the business. But you also need to be happy with what you're doing. So, in other
Sure.
words, you can't get into this business just because you have the money. You have to get into this business because you have the money, obviously, but because you have a strong passion for what you're going to be doing. So now you would say, well, how do you determine that passion? Well,
Right.
there's really not a set of instructions to assess that. I would say that it just takes time in the process that we go, basically from the initial contact, through the discovery day. We spend a day, in some cases 2 days with the prospect, showing them around. So we spend a lot of time talking and getting to know each other. And in those dialogues and communications, you really put yourself in a position uh, to understand really what is behind their their desire to get into a concept like this. So I would say, to answer your question, that it involves a lot of open dialogue and a lot of communication at the very beginning to really
Right.
assess what is behind the motivation to get into this.
It's very interesting. In talking about the franchisees also, I mean, so it doesn't sound like you really have to have the background in that particular industry as well, Roberto.
No, you don't. I mean, you don't necessarily need to be a PhD in early childhood education to
Right. Right.
to be successful in this. I think, I mean, not even Candy has a PhD in education. I mean, it's more, it's more, it's more the passion. It's more the desire and the love for being around children, the most important thing. And I mean, if you're not qualified to be the director of the school, that's perfectly fine. You know, there are a lot of candidates out there that would love to join an organization where the founders and the owners are, you know, like to be with kids as much as that potential candidate would be. So I think that that to answer your question, no, you don't necessarily need to be you know, the best educator to do something like this.
That's interesting. I guess in you know, in the passion of or enthusiasm of working with children, I guess the parents are probably also important too, aren't they, Roberto? I mean, the sense of, I remember when, you know, my wife and I, we were looking for you know, early childhood programs for my son. I mean, it was very stressful. I mean, we treated it like it was like he was going to Harvard University or something, you know. And so I guess there's a lot of dealing with the parents as well, isn't there?
Absolutely. You know, obviously the relationship with the parents is it's very, very important, and it's definitely one of the challenging things that we do on a day-to-day basis inside of these schools. And you know, we obviously recognize that you know, we're basically educating the family's most important treasures, and it's a big responsibility that we take. Sometimes in the relationship with the parents, we have to, as you know, I always tell my directors, you know, put yourself into their parents' shoes before when you talk to them. But sometimes it's difficult to do that because there are also rules and policies that we need to enforce. So again, it's a very important component, very delicate subjects when we have to discuss with them things that are not sometimes that cool, meaning, you know, we need to sit down with them because there are behavioral issues and things like that. But we recognize as a school that our responsibility is not to have, you know, 150 to 200 students per school and expect that all of them are going to be the perfect model of a child. I mean, that doesn't really exist. You know, every child is unique, and we need to respect them and value them the way they are. And some of them are more active, and some of them may have special needs, and we call them special rights, because in our opinion, it's not necessarily special needs. It's just a special rights that they have that we need to go and make sure that we take care of them. So it's I would say it's a very delicate relationship that we valued and put the most put it at the top of the priority list in the operation of a school. We embrace parent participation, so we have an open door policy. We want them to feel welcome to come in as many times as they want, to make sure that they feel comfortable with the school setting. we realize that, like you said, it's a very stressful decision at the beginning, but once they make it and with time and they gain confidence in the school, they'll be fine.
When I was studying KLA Schools, Roberto, I read that, you know, a majority of your franchisees are immigrants from all over the world, and my mom is from another country, and she has very strong work ethic. I mean, how does that benefit your franchise? I mean, having, you know, a lot of immigrants work for as franchisees in the system.
I mean, obviously, the fact that my franchisees come from different parts of the world has just been out of a coincidence. We don't necessarily, you know, pick them, but it's just it has happened that way. And it's funny because we, you know, I also come from Latin America myself. So, but it's funny because I mean, some of them are American, but they're immigrants. So, you know, sometimes I say to my employees, I say we're a minority franchise organization because really we have people from, you know, all over the world, and so but it's helped us a lot, as to grow as an organization that values the multicultural aspects of the society nowadays. I think that that together with the fact that we're headquartered in Miami, which is a very also international and multicultural place to be at, we're very, very used to. So I don't know if that's definitely going to help us continue to grow our pool of people from all over the world. I hope we're not closing the doors to the more traditional American prospect, because eventually I would want to get some of those as well that will value our brand proposition.
Sure, absolutely. I think it does add to the diversity of your franchise, and there's just, of course, there's so many, benefits to having that diversity, So it was one of the things that certainly stood out, when I was studying KLA Schools. Because you're the founder of the company, Roberto, I can ask you, where do you see KLA Schools if you had a crystal ball, like 3 to 5 years down the road?
It's hard to say, but we envision ourselves continue to grow in a controlled mode. I think that we are going to continue to grow the pool of corporate-owned centers in different parts of the country, and kind of like replicate the model of what we did in Miami and in South Florida, which is putting 3-4 corporate-owned locations and then let the franchisees help you basically continue to fill the market, and that's what we want to do in other parts of the country for the next 3 to 4 years, and obviously continue to welcome entrepreneurs and people that want to get into this for the right reasons, and we'll definitely take a serious look into their desires, and if there's a good fit, continue to award franchises. But I would say that in a very responsible and controlled way.
Which is so important. I think that's fantastic. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information on KLA Schools, Roberto? Is there any websites that they can go to, or any numbers they can
Absolutely.
call?
So basically, we have 2 websites. One that is the school's website, and then obviously we have the franchise website. Okay. So in klaschools.com, they can go in and find out what the essence of the program is. Where we have schools located, with the programs that we offer, a lot of information about our curriculum and our history. It's a very good way for the consumer to educate themselves into our program, to decide if should one of these programs be close to their homes, decide to enroll in one of the schools. And then we have the KLA franchise, the KLA Schools franchise.com website, which is the franchise arm of the company. It's basically, you can find there all the information about what our program offers to the franchisee in terms of the business, how much money they can make, the support, and everything that goes with it.
That's fantastic. I want to thank you again for coming on the show, Roberto. You've been a fantastic guest, and I think you have a great franchise system, and I love, the whole story of KLA Schools. So, I'd like to already invite you back next year or the year after that as you continue to grow. I think you have a great system over there.
Thank you very much.
It's my pleasure. We'll be right back with more franchise interviews.
Franchise interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia. You're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews. Franchisers, are you looking to reach aspiring entrepreneurs looking to buy a franchise? Are you looking to reach a highly educated audience on franchising? For over 8 years, Franchise Interviews has been giving an up-close, behind-the-scenes look at franchising and entrepreneurship through our website, franchiseinterviews.com. Or you can hear and read interviews as well as get tips from some of the most successful sources in franchising. Our weekly franchise radio show, where each week you get to hear a new interview with franchisers, franchisees, franchise authors, franchise experts, and attorneys, and our podcast, Great Quotes in Franchising. For more information, go to franchiseinterviews.com or call us at 610-905-2919. That's 610-905-2919. Franchise Interviews. From Easton, Pennsylvania to Sydney, Australia, you're listening to Franchise Interviews. Franchise Interviews.
Hi everyone, this is Marty McDermott from Franchise Interviews, and welcome to another edition of Great Quotes in Franchising, where each podcast you get to hear a great quote in franchising. You know, Don and I have been hosting Franchise Interviews now, and during that time we've had some incredible quotes on the show. Today you're going to get to hear from one of the authors of Street Smart Franchising, Joe Matthews, and this truly is a must-read before buying a franchise. And Joe's going to talk about the 4 key ingredients of the most successful franchisees, and he calls it the cash model of success. Listen to what he says. It's really quite fascinating.
Right, and actually hold them accountable for the blocking and tackling and the day-to-day implementation of the system. Right. Not like from a command and control technique, but just by asking.
Exactly. It's, when you were talking about knowledge, I remember in the book you mentioned it was a model. It was called CASH, K-A-S-H. The K being part of that. Could you talk a little bit about that? What exactly is that?
Well, yeah, the CASH model is the secret formula of winning at anything. So if you look at what peak performers have, they all pretty much have the same cash as other peak performers. In other words, peak performers, they have a tendency to know the same things. Like they know what they need to know to be successful, right? So that's K is knowledge. And what did we already say about knowledge?
It's overrated.
It's way overrated, right? Okay. A is attitude, which is extremely underrated. Now, if you look up attitude in the dictionary, it's not about good attitude, bad attitude. Attitude means how you relate to things.
Right.
So a franchisee who's a peak performer or has a high level of cash, they have a certain relationship with the franchisor that other underperforming franchisees don't have. They have a relationship with their customers. They have a relationship with their products and services.
Right.
They have a relationship to things like advertising. They have a relationship to what it is to go to work in the morning. It's a much more powerful mindset, than people who aren't winning. S is skills. They're good at everything they need to be good at.
Right.
And the most important thing, habits.
Right.
It's like where they spend their time.
Right.
In any business, it's the old 80-20 rule. The typical person wastes 80% of their time on things that generate 20% results and only invest 20% of their time on things that generate 80% of the results.
Yeah.
So what are those 80% activities? And are you engaged in them? Are you focused on the high priority activities that generate all the results? When I'm coaching a franchisee, that's the first place I look. When they tell me they're not winning, don't tell me where you think you're spending your time, document it.
Right.
I want to know where you're spending your time and on what. And you know what? When they actually look at where they spend their time on paper and how long things take and what little it produces and how much they waste, when they're done throwing up, they have a huge breakthrough in results.
Right, absolutely.
Most of the time, it's time management.
Yeah, you mentioned in the book, I think a lot of our time is spent on minutia. So I think is what you said. It was interesting.
And Joe, habits should always be reviewed and, evolved. I mean, habits, should always be changing, basically, right?
I didn't hear the question. One more time?
Your habits should always are always being reviewed and evolving. Habits should always be changing, basically, because businesses can change and people don't want to get into bad habits. So that's always kind of evolving, right?
It depends on the business model. Yeah, some business models, there isn't a whole heck of a lot of change. Franchisors, a lot of them are fairly low tech. Like the sponsor of this business is, Molly Maids, right?
Right.
The technology are vacuums.
There you go.
So there you want them to get into a rhythm and just do the same thing over and over and over again and beat it into the dirt.
Exactly.
I'll maybe talking more about the marketing and advertising,
Right.
Yeah, so there are aspects of the business that need to change, but typically franchise businesses are fairly low-tech, rhythm-type businesses. Like once you got the winning formula, you just beat it into the dirt. You wake up, you execute it, you wake up the next day, you execute it again.
Right, that's why people paying the royalty. That's why people are paying the royalty fee. They're buying into the system. It's already there. It's already a winning formula.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, good. So you.
Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you next week with another edition of Franchise Interviews. Take care, everyone.